News just broke that WWE released Zelina Vega from their the company. Obviously, Zelina Vega was the manager of Andrade, and then they transitioned her to more of like they were going to feature her more as an in-ring role coming up, but she was such a presence as a manager in wrestling, and what she enhanced Andrade's value, I think, and especially in NXT. And now she's gone, and she was a viable star, a consistent star on Raw during the pandemic too, not to mention. And what was funny, nothing funny about being fired or released, but what was interesting about it is she was just on Lillian Garcia's Chasing Glory podcast, where she was kind of just giving details just about her relationship with Aleister Black, who she's married to, and different things like that. But Marcus, I want to get your perspective. Obviously, she'd be an amazing signing for AEW. What do you think about adding Zelina Vega into the All Elite mix?
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with somebody like that. As we've discussed in many cases, a lot of people want to drag AEW for having former WWE people on their TV, but the same concept as when WCW was around, and the concept makes a lot of sense. WWE has invested money in these people, so there's a lot of equity in these people. They've been on national television numerous times, and so the idea is that when somebody's flipping through the channels and they flip to AEW and they see somebody that they've seen on WWE, they're like, wait a minute, I thought the guy was with WWE. What's going on? Dominic, the exact same thing happened with you and I when we got into pro wrestling, did it not?
Yeah.
You were a Razor Ramon fan, and I remember being a kid and saying, and I truly remember this conversation saying to you, I thought that he was WWF, and you were like, no, he's with this company now. I'm like, what's this company all about? And then all of a sudden, I became the biggest WCW fan ever, just from that conversation, essentially. So, that's why there's equity in it. So it's always a good idea, no matter what anybody says. They talk about building indie stars. Nope, doesn't work as well. You get some slapdick indie star that nobody knows in the ring. What good is that going to do? The idea is that you're supposed to have somebody like a Chris Jericho, have somebody like Brody Lee, like people who are recognizable and who give people a legitimate reason to tune in. And I think that Zelina Vega could offer that. Now, if you're asking me about this whole, them with their side hustle thing, I don't know if we're going to agree on that subject, but
no. Are you talking from Twitch? What do you mean by the side hustle thing?
Well, that's, isn't that why they're talking about unionization? They want their own little side hustles on, they want to be able to do their.
Yeah, like they want to have their platform to be able to broadcast and make money outside of it, particularly since they're independent contractors, technically. But in all actuality, WWE doesn't, even though they're not labeled this, they're employees of WWE. The way they work, the way they are confined to what they're supposed to be doing, to what WWE wants them to do, that makes them employees under their company. So, but they're not paid like employees. They're treated for WWE's own purposes. They're labeled as independent contractors because it gives WWE more leverage to do what they want to do with these talents. So as far as the side hustle goes, there should not be so much discrepancy about this. I understand to a point, and I've talked about this with Kevin on the other show and Robert DeFelice and about this.
And by the way, this is a show about AEW Dynamite, so we'll keep this brief.
We'll keep it brief, yeah, but I think this all kind of factors in too. I mean, because, look at what Kip Sapien is doing with Twitch. That's the thing too. So, but all that stuff, they should have the right and the freedom to do that stuff. And I understand from the perspective of you don't want your talent saying certain things about your brand or your company when they're representing you on their Twitch channel or revealing stuff. I get that. But there should not be confined to like having to pay or having WWE get their chunk of the money of what they're doing on their own creative aspect of things and doing their own creative thing. WWE shouldn't be like making this be included in their downside guarantee or anything like that. So,
well, in my humble opinion, Dom, again, this conversation of the equity that is now in people as a result of what WWE has invested in them. WWE has invested this money to get these people in a position where people are even interested in the first place in seeing what they have to say or do on Twitch. It's a direct result of their ties to WWE, who, by the way, this is not the 90s anymore when somebody's making 75 grand a year. Like, these guys are making a ton of money from WWE, whether it be figures, merch, just general pay, all of it. They're making way more money than the people that came before them. So I mean, when you go to the WWE, you're in the show. Like, you've made it. You're at the top of your profession theoretically. So with that being the case, why would you throw that away so that you can have a side hustle? Make all the money that you can with WWE while you can, and when you are inevitably cut loose, because Vince, he treats them all like old toys, right? Once the batteries are done, he throws them away and grabs a new toy. When Vince inevitably does that to you, that's when you turn to Twitch and you get your $40,000 a month side hustle.
I get that to a point, but also when it comes to that, wrestlers and talents like that are creative people. And if you're not getting your creative outlet from working under this company, and you're locked into a contract where you're making appearances on Main Event, and you're doing just stupid, dumb shit that you're not getting to do as a wrestler. When these talents grew up watching wrestling and seeing wrestling, that they were seeing talents mostly who were themselves up to a level of 11. Now, they're not getting that opportunity. So WWE and WWE, to their own selfish purposes, again, treat them as independent contractors. They are not independent contractors. They're employees. They're treated like employees. So to adhere to such contracts like that is stupid. And it's also hurting the goodwill of WWE from an employer to employee perspective. You're not treating your employees well in the manner that they would like. So ultimately, that's going to come back and bite you. And in this case, it's kind of did with Zelina, as maybe they released her, but she's a valuable talent, and now she probably has to adhere to a no compete clause for 90 days. But I mean,
well, look, the other thing, Dom, is that you can't. I've met people like Vince McMahon before. Obviously, I've never met Vince McMahon, but I've met people who are leaders who are like Vince McMahon.
Alpha males.
Exactly, people like that. And the thing is that those people tend to respect you more when you speak your mind.
Maybe she did. Did you not? I bet she did, Marcus.
Dom, she talked about unionizing, and and that's what got her fired. It was 20 minutes after she had a post about unionizing.
Marcus, I'm not going to say, I don't think her tweet was in correlation with her getting fired either. I don't think she tweeted that and they're like, okay, she's gone.
The timing is a little weird.
Timing's weird, but I bet she knew she was getting fired when she made that tweet. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, in any case, what I was going to say is, if you are giving creative that you don't care for, or you're only on Main Event and you're jerking the curtain on Raw or whatever's going on, like, go to Vince McMahon, but go with an idea. Say, hey, look, I've been thinking about this. Here's the idea that I have for me. I think that a lot of these people, based on what I've been hearing, obviously I'm not there, so I can't really say for sure, but based on the things I've been hearing, everybody's just satisfied that they've made it to WWE. They're like, I'm already at the peak of my profession. I'm just going to do what I'm told to do, and that's that. And I don't think that you get anything done when you do anything like that, or you're just happy to collect a paycheck. Like, to me, I'd say, okay, hey, look, Vince, you're giving me $700,000 a year. How about you use me like this? Here's an idea that I came up with while I was in the bathtub, like
Marcus. But we know Vince too, and we've heard stories about Vince. Vince wants this idea to be treated like it was his own idea. Like, there'll be so many times where like a wrestler will pitch something to him and Vince will be like, oh, that's a good idea. Write it down. Bret Hart just mentioned this in his book, how he wrote something down about like an idea that Bret had. And then later on, he thought he came up with it. Vince came up with it. And so Bret was like, all right, whatever, but
as long as the end result's the same.
That happens a lot. But also, what also happens a lot is you'll hear from talents, like if you listen to Jon Moxley's interviews after he left WWE, he would be doing what you're saying to Vince. And like Vince would just be like, no, this is great. This is good shit and all this stuff. And like we saw what happened to Dean Ambrose at that time before he left, where he would get inoculated and all that bullshit, stupid, dumbass mustard squirt and all that junk. So, it's a different time. Vince is at a different age. And he's got a lot of filters and a lot of yes men and lives in his own bubble. And you can see that is evident by how he handled the pandemic that he's passed. Before his feet were put to the fire about the pandemic, he was all careless and lackadaisical about it. So, I mean, all this kind of comes into play with the treatment of the employees and how it just all goes down. So I'm certain like that, and I heard a report or something that Zelina was going to make her final plea to Vince about keeping their Twitch. It might've been Zelina or Paige. I can't remember which one, maybe even both, but they both are adamant about wanting their Twitch. Zelina went to OnlyFans to try to cultivate a following there. And, we see what happened this evening. So,
well, Tony Khan has made it clear that he does not care if his people are on Twitch. So if that's the case, then, I think that could truly be something that sets AEW apart.